The following day, as they were on their journey and approaching the city, Peter went up on the roof to pray. He became hungry and wanted something to eat. And while the meal was being prepared, he fell into a trance. He saw heaven opened and something like a large sheet being let down to earth by its four corners. It contained all kinds of four-footed animals, as well as reptiles of the earth, birds of the air. And then a voice told him, "Get up, Peter, kill and eat." "Surely not, Lord," Peter replied. "I've never eaten anything impure or unclean." The voice spoke to him a second time, "Don't call anything impure that God has made clean." This happened 3 times, and immediately the sheep was taken back to heaven. While Peter was wondering about the meaning of the vision, the men sent by Cornelius found out where Simon's house was and stopped at the gate. They called out asking if Simon, who was known as Peter, was staying there. While Peter was still thinking about the vision, the Spirit said to him, "Simon, 3 men are looking for you, so get up and go downstairs. Do not hesitate to go with them, for I have sent them." Peter went down and said to the men, "I am the one you're looking for. Why have you come?" The men replied, "We have come from Cornelius the centurion. He is a righteous and God-fearing man who is respected by all the Jewish people. A holy angel told him to have you come to his house so that he can hear what you have to say." Then Peter invited the men into the house to be his guests. For the next few moments, I'm going to talk to you from the subject, the need for radical change. Charles Darwin had a really amazing quote. Charles Darwin, of course, is the man behind the theory of evolution, natural selection, survival of the fittest, all of those things. You know, before you church me, this isn't an endorsement of his philosophies and of his theories. Just because the man, didn't think like us and believe like us doesn't necessarily mean he's not, capable of making a good quote every now and then. So he made a really good quote that I want to reference. And before you walk out and say, "My pastor is an evolutionist," no, listen to the quote and put the whole thing in context. All right. He said that it's not the strongest or the most intellectual animal that survives. He says that it's the one that's best able to adapt to change. I want you to think about that statement again. It's not the smartest, the strongest, the most intellectual animal that survives. The most talented, the most competent. It's not that animal that survives in all cases. But it's the one that's best able to adapt to change. We can apply the same thing to our life. If we're not willing to change in significant areas, if we're not willing to restructure our thinking, reorient our attitudes, if we're not willing to do what it takes to put bad habits, bad mentalities, bad ideologies behind us, then we won't survive. And I'm not just talking about surviving physically, because the goal is to be a holistic person. To have nothing missing, nothing lost, to be whole in all areas. I don't just want to survive physically, because if I survive physically but everything else is miserable, then what's the point? I want to survive in all areas of my life. But in order to survive, it doesn't matter how smart I am, it doesn't matter how quick I can run and how strong I am. What matters is my ability to adapt to the shifting seasons of life. Change is something that we all have to embrace. Yes. This is kind of a piggyback on the series that we just, got out of, the Understanding the Seasons of Life series. Because we were confronted with some realities about the seasons that we find ourselves in. And unless we're not willing to adapt to the season that we're in, ultimately all is lost. When I first moved to Atlanta from California, I was the biggest Atlanta evangelist. I mean, I would call all my friends in California and I would tell them, you need to move to Atlanta. You need to, Atlanta is the spot. There's a place you need to come. You sitting there, you paying, $1,800 for a 2-bedroom apartment. And you can come out here, you can buy a 4-bedroom house for $200,000, and you need to get, and I was calling all my friends in California. You get played, come out here, move to Atlanta. And some of them did as a result. And a lot of them moved out here, realized that it wasn't California, and moved right back. And now, rather than saying you're going to love Atlanta's going to work, you know what I say to people now? Because people still ask me, do you think I should move to Atlanta? Do you think? And now what I say? Atlanta is what you make it. If you come out here and expect Atlanta to be California, you will fail. If you come out here and you don't adapt to the culture of Atlanta, you don't adapt to the ways, if you think Atlanta is going to be like LA, you won't make it. You're going to have to come out here and change. If you're not willing to come out here and change, then as soon as you move out here, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, you'll be wanting to go back because it's too much of a culture shift for you. Well, that's the same thing that we have to confront. We want to move to the next level. We want to move to our new destiny. We want to move to our new place in God. But could it be that God has purposefully impeded our progress because he knows that once we get to the next place, we'll get to the new place with our old habits, old attitudes, old ideas. We won't be able to adapt. And so ultimately we will ruin our new place with our old thinking because of our refusal to change. People have to change. 2 people get into a marriage. They're in love at first, and the birds are singing, and that first year, it's just, it's kind of like teenage love, you know what I mean? Next year passes. Before long, you wake up, it's been 10 years. And that feeling, it's just not there anymore. So you decide to go to counseling. And the counselor is sitting there saying, well, what's the problem? Well, she's changed. He's changed. 2 words, no duh. After 10 years, if you don't change, then something's wrong. After 10 years, if things have been static, if things have been stagnant, something's wrong. You can't expect to be in anything for a long period of time and not to have to evolve with the situation that you're connected to. The text that we just read is extremely interesting because it shows an interesting progression. And this is a progression that we all go through as human beings until we get to the point of change. Very early on, I want you to see in the text, the Apostle Peter, he's on a journey. All right? His journey takes him to a house. Once he gets inside the house, he goes on the rooftop. There on the rooftop, he gets hungry. So somebody prepares him something to eat. And while they're preparing him something to eat, he falls into a trance. So the progression of really the first part of the text is he's on a journey, he gets on a rooftop, he gets hungry, then he falls into a trance. That's kind of how, that's kind of what we experience leading up to our change. Everybody in here, I don't care what age and stage of life you're in, you're on a journey right now. There's somewhere that you're trying to get to, there's somewhere that you're trying to go, and inevitably what you do is you make decisions when you're in a journey mindset, you make decisions that will fortify your travel, that will help you along, whether it's, moving to a different apartment, whether it's, changing your friends, whether it's changing your jobs. You accommodate your journey so that it can be a little bit more easier. You might lighten your load. You might do things specifically to make your journey a little bit more bearable and a little bit less hectic. Because a lot of us, like Abraham, realize that we're on a journey, but we're just not sure of the destination. We realize that God says go, but yet we don't really know where we're going, but we're just walking towards some undefined place. So when you're in a journey mindset, you realize that plans have to shift, ideas have to shift, sometimes intentions have to shift. So a journey mindset puts you in a mindset of constant change, constant flux, and inevitably, when you're in a journey mindset, along the journey, God will allow you to experience some rooftops. Victories, successes, wins. When you're on a rooftop, you are perched in an ascended position where you're looking down on everything else. You're on another level. You're on a new plane, and you're able to sit from a perched position and look at the ground level from a new level. Rooftops are great. You know those rooftops when you're able to sit back and celebrate the success as a result of the work that you put in, the effort that you put in. Maybe at work, the quarter ends, and you realize not only are you in the black, but yet you got a little bit, extra. You didn't just meet your goal, you exceeded your goal. Maybe, you saved, you did everything you needed to do to get into a house, and then you got into the house, you're on the rooftop. Rooftops are wonderful, and inevitably in the midst of any journey that you're on, God will give you a rooftop. See, God gives you the hunger so that you'll respond to it and move. God gives you the hunger. I mean, when you're physically hungry, you know that you're not satisfied physically until you go downstairs, you open up the refrigerator, and you put something together. It's the same thing with spiritual hunger. He gives you that so that you can move, so that you can quench it, so that you can satisfy the hunger. But if you wait too long, then ultimately you'll fall into a trance where you'll realize everything is passing me by. Everything is changing, but I'm still here. I'm still stuck. I'm not moving. I don't understand why I'm still in this static position while everything is, and I'm not even hungry anymore. I'm content. I'm content in middle management. I'm content. Just, he ain't never gonna give me a ring, and I'm content with it. I'm just fine with it. That's what I've settled with. I'm content. I'm content with living in this apartment. It's fine. I'm content. I'm not even gonna try to get a house. I'm not even gonna try to fix my credit to get a house, because I'm content right here at this base level. I'm content right here. Trance. And all of a sudden, the world is moving. Everybody else is progressing. Everybody else is getting promotions and getting married and having kids and making more money. But you look and your friends are passing you by and you're still stuck in the same position. Peter fell into a trance. It happens. It doesn't just happen to people, but it also happens to organizations. Organizations can fall into a trance. Blockbuster just filed for bankruptcy because they didn't compete with Netflix. Radical change. When you're confronted with radical change, it makes you think, wait, hold up. I haven't done it like that for years. Hold on. That's not how I've been taught. I've read all sorts of books that say to the contrary. It seems like it flies against conventional wisdom that doesn't align with my culture and with my taste and with my attitudes. When it's radical change, it flies in the face of everything you've inherited, everything that's been handed down, everything that you've learned, and it's almost like it's required for you to think again. It's almost like God has to re-educate you and reteach you, and you have to regress a little bit in your thinking to wrap your arms around the type of change that God wants to produce in your life. Radical change. Not only does it challenge your historical norms, but it has major implications for your future. Now listen to this. In this vision, the Apostle Peter is seeing these unclean animals. He's being told to kill and eat them. Not only does it challenge what happened historically, but I'm sure as he's looking at this vision, he thinks, what does this mean for the Mosaic law going forward? If I'm being told in this vision that I can eat these animals, what does it mean for the law as a whole? Because they grew up with the mindset, if you break one commandment, it's almost like you've broken all commandments. So I'm being asked to kill and eat all of these unclean animals, but the dietary laws are couched in the mix of a whole bunch of other laws. So what happens to the Mosaic law going forward? What happens to the Sabbath? What happens to all of these ceremonial regulations, these regulations of purity, these regulations of community and property? What happens to everything else going forward? His entire way of life was being challenged by this radical change. Because not only did it fly in the face of everything he encountered historically, but he had to think, what does this mean for my people? Does it mean that the entire Mosaic law is canceled? How desperate are you for different? Because if you're not desperate for different, you'll never change.